You see, the power of radical detachment lies in something most people never truly understand: silence. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of control, clarity, and peace. Imagine being in a situation where every word you speak is used against you, every emotion you express is twisted into something it was never meant to be. For a super empath, silence becomes a weapon. It's not a weakness, it's a choice. The narcissist thrives on chaos, thrives on the noise of conflict, thrives on the energy of those around them, especially when they can control it. They want you angry. They want you defensive. They want you caught up in a whirlwind of emotions because it feeds them, makes them feel superior. But the super empath, they refuse to engage. When you detach from a narcissist, you're not running away. You're reclaiming your energy, your space, your sanity. You stop feeding the fire with your anger, your hurt, your desperation for understanding. You don't react, not because you're afraid or because you don't care, but because you are making a conscious choice to preserve your peace. You don't need to argue, to yell, to prove your point. The truth doesn't need validation from someone who is incapable of understanding it. The narcissist will push and prod. They'll poke at your weaknesses, hoping to get a rise out of you. But in that moment of silence, you become untouchable. It's not about turning the other cheek. It's about knowing your worth and deciding that no one, no matter how manipulative or controlling, will ever be allowed to drag you down into their muck. The narcissist wants you to stay in their world, to be forever tethered to their drama, to constantly seek their approval or fight for their affection. But the super empath understands that the real power lies in stepping out of that toxic cycle entirely. When you choose radical detachment, you stop being a part of their narrative. You stop allowing yourself to be a character in their story. You no longer react to their tantrums or manipulation. Instead, you stand in your power, rooted in who you are, undisturbed by their chaos. You don't need to argue because you've already made up your mind. You don't need to seek their approval because you've already approved of yourself. It's a quiet kind of strength, but it's strong enough to make the narcissist quiver in their boots. You may think, but doesn't that make me a coward? Doesn't that make me weak to not fight back, to not speak up? But let me tell you, true strength is found in restraint. It's found in the ability to walk away from someone who wants to use you. It's found in choosing peace over conflict, in choosing yourself over someone who is determined to break you down. The narcissist's world revolves around control. Control over your emotions, your thoughts, your actions. But the super empath's world revolves around peace that is not dependent on anyone else's actions. The narcissist wants to break you, to see you lose yourself in their madness. But the super empath, they know that the only way to defeat the narcissist is by not engaging with the madness at all. And that's where the real magic happens. Because in that silence, the narcissist is forced to confront something they cannot handle, their own emptiness. When you don't react, when you don't engage, when you stop being a source of supply for their ego, they begin to question everything. They are left standing in front of a mirror they can't escape. And it's not your reflection they see, it's their own brokenness. They thrive on the energy of others, on the drama they create, on the manipulation they use to make people feel small and powerless. But when you detach, you take that power back. You stop feeding them. And that silence, that absence of energy, it eats away at them. It's like a slow, invisible death. The more you refuse to play their game, the more they feel that grip on their sense of control slip away. They will try everything to get you back. They'll charm you, guilt you, and maybe even threaten you. They'll act like nothing's wrong, like everything can go back to normal. But the truth is, nothing is normal anymore. They can't handle the peace you've found in the detachment, and that's when their world starts to unravel. They can no longer manipulate you, can no longer rely on your reactions to keep them feeling powerful. They are left with nothing but their own insecurities, their own need for validation, which no longer comes from you, and it drives them mad. By simply refusing to engage, the super empath takes back the one thing that narcissists fear the most: control. Not by force, not by aggression, but by standing firm in your own peace. When the narcissist tries to drag you into their whirlwind, you stay still. When they try to provoke you, you remain calm, and in that stillness, you win. That, my friends, is the real power of radical detachment. There is a quiet power in the way a super empath reflects the truth back to a narcissist without uttering a single word. The narcissist's world, as you know, is built on illusion, a false image of perfection, control, and superiority. They live in a carefully constructed bubble where their flaws, their insecurities, and their lies are hidden from view, not only from others, but from themselves. And when the empath steps into their presence, without even trying, without a single confrontation, they reflect something the narcissist cannot bear to see: the truth. The narcissist's need for validation is insatiable, and in the face of the empath's calm presence, that need is left unmet, making them face the darkness they've worked so hard to conceal. You might ask, how is this possible? How can silence and a peaceful demeanor expose the very things a narcissist seeks to hide? The answer is simple. The empath is a mirror, but not in the way the narcissist thinks. The empath doesn't engage in the battle for validation, doesn't dive into the conflict that the narcissist is so eager to create. Instead, the empath exists in a state of authenticity that is so pure, so unshakable, that it becomes impossible for the narcissist to ignore. It's as if they stand before a reflection that shows them not the grandiose image they've worked to project, but the reality of who they truly are. The narcissist seeks out praise, seeks out admiration, and thrives on being the center of attention. They surround themselves with people who are willing to feed this need, who will affirm their distorted sense of self-worth. But what happens when someone doesn't play that game? What happens when someone simply refuses to buy into the illusion? That's when the narcissist begins to feel uneasy, unbalanced, and threatened. Because the empath doesn't need to verbally attack, doesn't need to point out flaws, doesn't need to accuse the narcissist of their selfishness or manipulation. No, the empath simply stands there in their own light, with a quiet certainty, and in doing so, they expose the narcissist's greatest fear being seen for who they really are. You see, the narcissist thrives on control. They need to control the narrative, control how others perceive them, and control their surroundings. But when the empath enters the scene, they refuse to be controlled. The narcissist may try to manipulate, gaslight, and twist things around, but the empath remains firm in their sense of self. They are not swayed by the narcissist's charm, not moved by their empty promises. They don't need to fight for recognition or approval. Instead, they offer something far more powerful: the simple act of being true to themselves. That quiet authenticity shakes the narcissist to their core, for in the face of the empath's grounded reality, their illusions begin to crumble. There's something unsettling about the way the narcissist is forced to face the truth without ever hearing it from another's mouth. It's the reflection that stares back at them, the reality that they can't escape, no matter how much they try to manipulate or control the situation. The empath's strength, lies not in confrontation, but in the clarity of their own truth. When a narcissist looks at them, they see their own emptiness reflected back. They see a person who does not need them, a person who will not be swayed by their charm or their tactics. And for the narcissist, that is a devastating blow. It is in that reflection that the narcissist begins to question everything they have worked so hard to build. The very image of themselves they've spent years crafting begins to shatter. The constant need for admiration and control no longer has an outlet. The empath, by simply existing, becomes a mirror that the narcissist cannot avoid, a mirror that shows them the truth they are desperate to ignore. This silent reflection is far more potent than any verbal confrontation, far more powerful than any accusation. Because it is the truth that the narcissist fears most, and it is in this reflection that the narcissist becomes desperate. They will try everything: charm, guilt, manipulation, even anger, to break the empath's resolve, to get them to react, to feed them the validation they crave. But no matter how hard they try, the empath remains unwavering, quiet in their peace, rooted in their authenticity. The more the narcissist pushes, the more the empath's strength is revealed. It is a quiet strength, but it is a strength that no amount of manipulation can overcome. The narcissist's world begins to unravel as the empath becomes a living testament to the one thing they cannot tolerate: the truth. The narcissist thrives on the power of perception, but the empath understands that true power lies in being unshakably real, in standing firm in one's own truth. And this, my friends, is how a super empath destroys a narcissist without saying a word. Through the simple act of reflecting the truth back at them, the narcissist is forced to face the very thing they cannot bear to acknowledge. They can no longer hide from the reality of their own emptiness, and in that silent confrontation, they are slowly undone. When the super empath steps away from the narcissist, they are not simply leaving behind a toxic relationship. They are breaking free from a cycle that has held them captive for far too long. The trauma bond you see is a powerful force. It's a connection formed by manipulation, emotional abuse, and moments of intermittent love, like the way a storm gives way to moments of calm. These moments, these fleeting glimpses of affection or validation, are enough to keep the empath hooked, to make them believe that the narcissist can change, that things could be better, that the love they seek is just around the corner. But breaking the trauma bond, my friends, requires a deep and profound shift. It requires the empath to look beyond the illusion, to see the narcissist for who they truly are, and to take back the power that was once given away. The narcissist, in all their grandiosity and manipulation, seeks to create a bond that is not based on love, but on control. They need you to need them, to believe that your sense of self-worth is tied to their approval, to their validation. They need you to feel lost without them, to feel as though you cannot live without their love, their attention, or their dominance. The narcissist thrives on the idea that you are dependent on them, that your emotional state hinges on their presence and their whims. It's a sick kind of power they wield, a power that keeps you in a constant state of confusion, doubt, and pain. But the super empath understands the greatest truth. True love cannot be based on dependence. It cannot be built on a foundation of fear and manipulation. True love is about freedom, about mutual respect, about equality. And when the empath begins to heal themselves, when they start to realize their worth independent of the narcissist's validation, they begin to break the invisible chains that have held them bound. This isn't an overnight process, no. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes love. But it starts with one simple act, the decision to walk away, to let go of the false hope that the narcissist will ever give you the love you deserve. Breaking the trauma bond is not just about walking away from the narcissist, though that is a necessary first step. It's about reclaiming your own narrative. The narcissist wants you to believe that you are nothing without them, that your worth is tied to their opinions, their treatment of you, their attention. But the empath knows that their worth is not dictated by anyone else. It's not defined by how they are treated or how others perceive them. The moment the empath begins to see themselves as whole, as worthy, as complete without the narcissist, the trauma bond begins to dissolve. Slowly, imperceptibly, the hold the narcissist has over them loosens. As the super empath heals, something incredible happens. The need for validation, the need for approval, the need for love that is rooted in the narcissist's terms begins to fade. The empath realizes that they are whole on their own. They begin to rediscover their passions, their desires, their dreams, things that were once lost in the fog of the narcissist's control. They reconnect with their inner strength, their intuition, their sense of self. And it is this process of rediscovery, this reclamation of their own identity, that truly breaks the bond. Because as long as the narcissist holds the power to define you, to dictate your worth, they will always have a grip on your heart. But once you break free, once you stand firm in your own light, the bond is shattered forever. The narcissist may try to reel the empath back in. They may attempt to apologize, to promise change, to manipulate with guilt or charm. But the super empath has already recognized the truth. They understand that no amount of empty promises or sweet words will ever fill the void within them that the narcissist tried to exploit. The love they were seeking was never in the hands of the narcissist. It was always within themselves. And once that truth is realized, there is no going back. There is incredible power in healing. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, and it is not immediate. But the process of healing, of walking away from the emotional chaos, is the true destruction of the narcissist's power. Because as the empath heals, they no longer need the narcissist to complete them. They are whole, they are powerful, they are free. And this, my friends, is what breaks the trauma bond. The realization that you are enough, that you have always been enough, and that you do not need anyone, least of all a narcissist, to validate your existence. So, while the narcissist may try to maintain control, may try to pull you back into their toxic web, the empath knows the truth. They know that the only way to truly be free is to sever the ties that bind them, to reclaim their power and their peace. The bond is broken, not with anger or resentment, but with the quiet strength of self, love, self-respect, and the unshakable belief that they are deserving of better. And in that freedom, the narcissist's hold crumbles. The trauma bond fades into nothingness, and the super empath walks forward, stronger and wiser than ever before. There is a unique and quiet kind of power that comes when the super empath understands one simple truth. By starving the narcissist of the one thing they crave most: attention, admiration, and validation, they begin to unravel. You see, the narcissist cannot function without their supply. They cannot thrive without someone to feed their insatiable ego, someone to confirm their greatness, someone to constantly fuel their false sense of superiority. This supply comes in many forms: praise, admiration, attention, and even the energy of conflict. But the super empath, with their quiet wisdom, understands that the most effective way to destroy the narcissist is by offering them nothing, nothing at all. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's not. The narcissist is a master of manipulation, a puppeteer who pulls at the strings of those around them, trying to keep them entangled in a web of emotional chaos. They know how to charm, how to guilt, how to flatter, how to deceive. They will use every trick in their book to keep you hooked, to keep you invested in them. But when you understand that the only way to truly free yourself is to withhold the very thing they want, you take back the power. Imagine it, a narcissist who thrives on attention, praise, and validation, completely ignored, cut off, and starved of the energy they've spent their whole life demanding from others. The narcissist may try to play their usual games, try to provoke you, try to get a rise out of you, but the super empath stays calm, indifferent, unresponsive. They no longer play into the narcissist's hand. They refuse to offer any emotional energy, any supply. They simply withdraw, and in doing so, they rob the narcissist of the very thing that fuels their existence. At first, this tactic may confuse the narcissist. They might not understand why their usual tricks aren't working, why their attempts to provoke or charm you fall flat. They may come at you with anger, with frustration, or even with calculated sweetness, trying to hook you back into their world. But here's the beauty of it. The more they try, the more they expose themselves, the more they reach for your attention, the more desperate they look. They cannot thrive without that supply, and when they realize it is no longer coming from you, the emptiness begins to settle in. The narcissist's world is built on the concept of control. They need to control how others perceive them, how others feel about them, how others react to them. When the empath stops reacting, when the empath stops playing the game, the narcissist's control starts to slip away. They have no hold on you anymore, no power over your emotions, no ability to provoke or manipulate you. It's like a balloon losing air. The more they struggle to get something, anything from you, the faster they deflate. And in this silence, in this refusal to engage, they are left with nothing but their own brokenness, their own emptiness, their own need for validation that can never be satisfied. This is where the empath's power lies, in not reacting, in not feeding the narcissist's need for attention. The narcissist thrives on conflict, on drama, on people who will chase after them, fight for their attention, beg for their affection. But the super empath understands that nothing they say, nothing they do, will ever fill the void within the narcissist. The only way to truly take the power back is to stop giving. When you starve the narcissist of their supply, they are left with nothing. And that nothing is their greatest fear. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit. No matter how much they try, no matter how much they demand, no matter how much they manipulate, they cannot fill that emptiness. But they will keep trying. They will keep pushing, keep testing boundaries, keep seeking validation. And in doing so, they reveal their own weaknesses, their own insecurity, their own neediness. The empath doesn't need to do anything other than withhold their energy and attention. This silence is deafening. It's a weapon that doesn't need to make a sound. The narcissist is a parasite, feeding off the energy of others, drawing strength from their ability to control and manipulate. But the super empath, by simply withdrawing, begins the process of stripping away the narcissist's power. You stop feeding the beast, and as the narcissist begins to wither, you grow stronger. You find peace in your own silence, in your own energy, and the narcissist is left scrambling, desperate for the one thing they can never seem to obtain from you, your emotional investment. And this is where the true destruction occurs, because the more the narcissist seeks your validation and gets nothing, the more they begin to question themselves. They can no longer rely on you to feed their ego. They can no longer control your emotions, your actions, your reactions. The narcissist may try to go after someone else, may try to find a new source of supply, but the damage has already been done. They have been exposed for what they are: empty, fragile, desperate. They have been shown that their control over others is a fragile illusion, and without your emotional energy, they crumble. The beauty of this process is that the empath never has to lift a finger. The narcissist destroys themselves by their own need for validation, their own desire to dominate, their own fear of being exposed. And in the end, the super empath walks away unscathed, free, and stronger than ever before. In starving the narcissist of what they crave, the empath regains their own power, and the narcissist is left to face their own emptiness. And that, my friends, is the final blow. The narcissist lives for one thing, and one thing only: control. They need to control the narrative, control the people around them, and most importantly, control how others see them. This need for control is not just about power, it's about survival. You see, the narcissist's entire self-worth is built on the fragile scaffolding of how others perceive them. The moment that perception begins to slip, the narcissist is no longer in control. And this is where the super empath, in their quiet strength, becomes a force to be reckoned with. The empath's gift lies in their ability to see through the narcissist's mask. While the narcissist thrives on attention, admiration, and validation, the empath sees the emptiness that lies beneath. They don't need to be told that the narcissist's world is built on lies. They can feel it. They can see the cracks in the facade, the desperate need for control, the constant manipulation that keeps the narcissist's world from falling apart. And the more the empath steps into their own truth, the more they recognize their own value independent of the narcissist, the more they begin to challenge the very foundation of the narcissist's reality. When the super empath stops participating in the narcissist's game of validation, something incredible happens. The narcissist, who has relied on others to prop up their fragile self-esteem, begins to crumble. They can't handle being ignored, being dismissed, being shown for what they truly are. It's not just that the empath withdraws their energy, it's that in doing so, they expose the narcissist's weakness. They expose the fact that the narcissist cannot exist without the constant approval of others. The narcissist's greatest fear is being unmasked, being exposed for the hollow, insecure person they are. And the super empath does just that. They stop feeding into the narrative, and by doing so, they slowly tear down the carefully constructed illusion. The narcissist will fight this tooth and nail. They will try to reel you back in with charm, with anger, with guilt, with manipulation. They will offer promises of change, play on your sympathies, and throw tantrums in a desperate attempt to regain control. But the super empath, who has learned the power of disengagement, does not fall for these tricks. They've seen the narcissist's pattern before. They know that the promises of change are nothing but empty words, and that the narcissist's charm is just another form of manipulation. The empath sees through the smoke and mirrors, and they refuse to participate in the narcissist's circus any longer. What happens next is something that many people don't realize. The narcissist begins to lose their grip on reality. They are no longer able to dictate how others see them, no longer able to control the narrative, and this is terrifying for them. The narcissist's entire world is built on their ability to control others, to keep people hooked on their approval, to make them feel like they are special, indispensable, irreplaceable. When the super empath pulls back, when they stop being a source of validation and begin to trust their own sense of self-worth, the narcissist's world begins to unravel. In this space of withdrawal, the narcissist is forced to face a truth they are desperately trying to avoid. Their worth does not come from others. It does not come from the endless need for admiration, and it certainly does not come from controlling the people around them. The narcissist's world is built on a lie, and when the empath withdraws, that lie begins to collapse. It's like the ground shifting beneath their feet, and no matter how much they try to cling to the illusion, they can't hold it together. The beauty of this process is that it doesn't require the empath to say a word. It doesn't require them to argue, to point out the narcissist's flaws, or to demand an apology. The true power lies in the empath's ability to detach and step away. The narcissist will try to bring them back into the fold, try to get them to react, to play into the narrative once more, but the empath knows the game. They've played it before, and they've seen how it ends. And so, they simply refuse to play. The more the empath withholds their energy, the more the narcissist feels their sense of control slipping away. They can't manipulate the empath into reacting. They can't get the validation they crave. And so they begin to flounder. They become unmoored, disoriented, unsure of themselves. The very thing that once gave them power, the ability to manipulate, to control, to shape the narrative, becomes their greatest source of pain. And in this moment, the narcissist faces their greatest fear. They are not in control anymore. They are exposed, vulnerable, and powerless. The super empath, by simply refusing to engage, has stripped away the narcissist's illusion of control, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their own ego. It's a devastating blow, one that the narcissist will never fully recover from. But here's the thing. The super empath doesn't need to witness the narcissist's unraveling. They don't need to watch the destruction of the narcissist's carefully crafted world, because the victory lies in their detachment, in their refusal to participate in the narcissist's chaos. The true power of the empath is found in their ability to walk away and trust that the narcissist's need for control will ultimately be their undoing. And in that silence, in that withdrawal, the narcissist destroys themselves. There's something remarkable that happens when a super empath chooses to embrace the quiet power of non-resistance. In a world full of noise, chaos, and the relentless need to prove one's worth, the empath does something entirely different. They embody peace. They understand that true power doesn't lie in shouting, in clashing, in constant defense. True power lies in stillness, in the ability to remain grounded and unwavering in the face of any storm. When the narcissist can no longer get the emotional rise, the power shift, or the reaction they desperately crave, they find themselves powerless. And this, my friends, is when the empath begins to destroy them, not with force, but with silence. A narcissist thrives on the energy of others. They thrive on conflict, on drama, on manipulation, on the emotional chaos they sow in their relationships. Every emotional reaction they elicit from someone becomes a feeding ground for their inflated ego. But when the super empath chooses to be still, to remain calm and composed, they deny the narcissist the very thing they need to survive, emotional supply. And when that happens, the narcissist is exposed for what they are: empty, desperate, and broken. The super empath's refusal to engage in the narcissist's world of manipulation and chaos leaves them with nothing. No supply, no control, no power. It's a simple truth, yet it is one that many fail to see. The narcissist's strength is built on the emotional energy they drain from others. When no one is left to feed them, they wither. The empath, in their quiet wisdom, knows this. They know that the greatest victory is not in confrontation or in defeating the narcissist with words. The greatest victory is in simply walking away, standing firm in your peace, and letting the narcissist crumble under the weight of their own need for validation. But this takes courage. The narcissist will not let go of their need for control without a fight. They will pull out every trick in the book to reel the empath back into their toxic orbit. They will charm, they will manipulate, they will gaslight, they will guilt. They will use every tactic to keep the empath engaged, to keep the empath emotionally entangled. But the super empath, having learned to trust in their own strength, no longer bites the bait. They understand that the more they resist, the more they feed into the narcissist's game, and the true power lies in refusing to play at all. Imagine the narcissist desperately seeking attention, constantly throwing their emotional tantrums, attempting to provoke a response. But no matter what they do, the super empath remains unfazed, unwavering. The more the narcissist struggles, the more desperate they become. They try to reignite the conflict, escalate the situation, or provoke a sense of guilt, but every attempt is met with silence, with calm, with peace. And this, in turn, does something profound. It unravels the narcissist's sense of control. They start to feel that they are no longer the center of attention, no longer the one who dictates the emotional temperature of the relationship. In their mind, they are losing power, and this is when their world begins to collapse. The narcissist's entire existence is rooted in the idea that they must be adored, must be admired, must be the focal point of every interaction. They need to be the center of attention, and they need others to affirm their worth. The empath, by simply refusing to engage in this cycle, strips away the very foundation that the narcissist has built their life upon. The narcissist's reality starts to shatter, and in the absence of the emotional reactions they crave, they are left to face the emptiness they've been desperately running from their whole life. And let's be clear, the empath does not engage in this process to see the narcissist suffer. No, the empath's victory lies in their own sense of freedom. The narcissist's crumbling world is merely a byproduct of the empath's decision to stand firm in their own truth, to reclaim their power, and to stop feeding the narcissist's need for validation. The empath does not need to raise a hand or utter a single word. Their power lies in their ability to remain calm, composed, and detached. In many ways, the narcissist's downfall is inevitable. The more the narcissist is denied the supply they crave, the more fragile their sense of self becomes. The narcissist is like a fragile house of cards, built upon the false belief that they must constantly seek validation from others. The moment that supply is denied, the house begins to collapse. The narcissist can no longer hide behind their manipulations, their charm, or their ability to control the emotions of others. And the empath, by stepping out of the toxic cycle, begins to witness the slow unraveling of the narcissist's carefully crafted illusion. The true brilliance of this strategy lies in its subtlety. The narcissist may try to blame others for their downfall. They may even point fingers and attempt to paint the empath as the villain, but the empath knows the truth. They understand that they are not responsible for the narcissist's downfall. The narcissist has brought it upon themselves through their constant need for control, their manipulation, and their refusal to acknowledge the humanity of others. The empath simply becomes the mirror, reflecting the narcissist's true nature back to them. And this is the final act of destruction. Not in confrontation, not in anger, not in fighting fire with fire. The empath's true power lies in their ability to detach, to remain composed, and to walk away without looking back, The narcissist's control begins to dissolve in the face of such strength, and in this silence they are undone.